Welcome to the NHL 94 podcast, part of the CBP Media Network. This podcast is dedicated to the greatest game ever developed, where I will talk about the development of the game, tournaments and matches, our stories about NHL 94, the people that make up the NHL 94 community, the games won, lost, and the chirps that need to be heard around the world. Welcome 16-bit hockey fans to yet another edition of the NHL 94 podcast. I'm Len the Legend, joined once again by two very competent, very proficient SNES NHL 94 players, and I have Bob Kadalski and the Professor with me, and they'll be going over the Patrick division on how to best build your lines, because obviously I have no clue on how to do it, but they do. So, gentlemen, how are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Thanks for having us.
Living the dream, man. living the dream. So let's just dive right into it. I hear some sirens in the background of one of your things, so just in case it comes back. Bob, I'm going to go to you first. I want to hear your thoughts on the Patrick division. I mean, I'll just really quick on my side of things. I look at it. There seems to be a lot of highs, a lot of lows. I'm looking at Lemieux being the high, but man, Jersey, Florida. But what are your thoughts on this division?
Well, you're right. Like, Florida's terrible, but other than that, these are some really solid teams. And I guess the one theme that I see is they're pretty huge teams. Some of the bigger teams like Pittsburgh and New Jersey for sure are just big all around. And then Washington as well, like their defense is just massive. And then you have the Big E and Philly. So that's kind of my takeaway, is like these are some really big, solid teams.
Professor, your thoughts on this division?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that really stands out, is how big everybody is, but also like big in skill too. If you look at like the Rangers, even the guys on the Islanders and Pittsburgh, and I think Washington, when we talk about them, like I love Washington, pretty underrated group. The lone, the one that stands out as being terrible is Florida. But other than that, you throw them out there, it's probably the deepest league that, like, I think people pick any of these teams. Like, I feel like they get played at tourneys all the time, for various reasons. So it's a really great division for sure.
So we'll just dive right into Florida. And I don't know how you are going to put lipstick on this pig here, but Professor, if you want to give us an idea how it is one would best build a line with this team, I don't know what to do, but maybe you have an idea.
You know what? It's usually the default in this case, like you're not really doing all that much with what's there. I like to have Scroodland in the middle just because he's the biggest guy. Because other than size, like everybody is just really terrible, I guess, in terms of skill. So you're really going with physical attributes at this point. Actually, in terms of the defense, that's the only sort of saving grace on here. Like Gord Murphy, on a good day, is actually a pretty good defender, and cloned Richer, is not half bad in terms of their size, but they all have a stick handling of 3 or less. So this is a team that is going to bobble like every pass, unless you're lucky. So it's not a really fun team to play with. Like usually in some of the other expansion teams that we've talked about, that there's a saving grace of like one guy, like somebody, whether it's Pat Falloon. I'm just trying to think of, like, in Anaheim, you've got Kasatonov. Like there's somebody on the team on one of those that's you can kind of count on to be half skilled enough to be able to do something. Like here it's a crapshoot. Like they're all bad, and you just kind of hope that one of them has a good day. That's the only way this is at all a fun team. At all. Anything usable.
There's not much here. Bob, your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, not much to add. I mean, they're just a bad team. My least favorite team, in my opinion, the worst team in the game. Gord Murphy, he's decent. He's legit, but again, like his stick handling is not even a 4. So he's no Kasatonov. He's not going to be your savior. There's no size, no skill. It's really bad. Lomakin, I don't know. I look at him to be like the skilled forward with a 3-3 shot, but it's kind of sad. I don't know. I put him at center just for a bit of skill, and then I don't know. Skrudland's kind of a banger with the 8 weight and the 4 checking there, and the third forward is just bad. Like I don't even know who you put there. There's Huff and Lowry and Belanger and Mellenby. Who knows? Like maybe look for someone, cycle them through, and see if someone's hot. Interesting thing, like with Stéphane Richer, I don't know. When I first saw that, I thought it was an error that they had Stéphane Richer on Florida defense. And if you look it up, he was actually born like in the same city as the real, I want to say the real Stéphane Richer. I think they're both born in Hull, Quebec. Like, what are the odds that they would be named the same, both in the NHL at the same time? But that is maybe the most interesting thing about this team. It's just bad. Avoid at all costs. They are not good. And, you know, if you're ever in a tournament play, I can't imagine even using them. Like if someone picks a Florida matchup, I wouldn't be picking Florida.
Yeah, but I do feel like though sometimes they hit well. And I don't know if it's just a small sample. I don't play with them very much, but I don't know. I feel like they're like, because everybody has a size like of at least a 7. For me, like a 7 is a bare minimum, you know, competency in terms of how big you are. So they all meet that bar. But again, like I said, like that's the only thing in this division. Like they're all big. But yeah, like other than that, it's tough slogging with this group.
So anytime this is called out for a matchup, you're never, if you have the option, you're not going to choose them?
I wouldn't.
I don't think so. Maybe Ottawa. I really don't like Ottawa.
Oh, no, you're hurting Bob's feelings.
Yeah.
So this is potentially the worst team in the game. Is that, you know,
that's my opinion. Yeah, I think I don't know how you could argue that they're any better than bottom 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That's fair. What a piece of crap this team is. So good for you if you're playing them, but I don't know what you can do with them.
No Barkov or Matt Kachuk on this edition.
Van Beesbrook doesn't elevate this team at all. Doesn't give any sort of redeeming qualities.
Really.
Nothing. Oh.
Nope.
I try my best here to give them something. They made the finals and won a Stanley Cup for God's sakes this year, right? They got to give them something.
In 90, what was that? 95. 90.
No, this year they beat the Oilers.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought.
But no, it was the year after that. I think that they played in the 2 years. Either way, it was. We'll just
96.
Yeah. Colorado, I think, was the one that smoked them. Either way, let's move to the next. Was it Colorado or Detroit? Either way, whatever. Jersey's big defense, big shooter, but how does this transition well in the SNES version, Bob? I want to hear your thoughts on how you could build a lineup with these guys.
It's a good team in SNES. Like it's not an elite team, but it's a fun team. It might be my favorite or one of my favorite teams to play with, just because this size. Claude Lemieux is just a wrecking ball, and then the defense is definitely like elite top 3. So yeah, up front you have some size with, you know, Richer is a good size there, and he's got a pretty nice shot. So I like to put him at center. And then Claude Lemieux, he's got that rare combo of the massive size with actually good skating and some decent puck skills. Not a great shot, but which is kind of a theme on this team. But he is a valuable player for sure, like a nice complementary winger, I would say. And then the third forward, C-Mac, Zelepukin, or Stastny. You can't really go wrong with those guys. Stastny to me is a bit redundant. Like you already have some good size. So I prefer C-Mac for a right-hand shot and a bit of shot accuracy there. And then the defense, you know, Scott Stevens is just a beast. I rank him up there, like right behind Ray Bourque, probably up there with Iafrate and Coffey. And then Fetisov, I've mentioned him before, one of my faves. He's got the 2 speed, but I don't really feel it hurts him because he's got the size and the checking and the agility. So it still seems like he takes up a ton of space on the ice and can just get in the way and destroy guys just like Stevens. And he has the 4 stick handling and the 4 passing. So like he's a pretty valuable guy there. If he does get chances though, he will probably miss the net. I've had a lot of bad situations with Fetisov just totally missing the net by 10 feet. And then you do have a bit of depth there with Niedermeyer, and I kind of like Danico, just like a massive guy who can hit and be defensive.
With the 0 shot accuracy. Eh?
Yeah, just don't shoot. And then if we want to talk about goalies, I do feel Terrari's decent. Like maybe he's underrated because he's got that tiny size and pretty good speed and agility. So I think he can really move around, and he's been pretty good in the draft leagues when I've had him. So I feel like Terrari is a good goalie. So yeah, overall I like this team. One of my favorites. And I believe I think it was Token Toma is his name, won a classic league with them a few years ago, which is super impressive because, they don't have the elite skill, but they can certainly lock it down defensively. So in that sense, it's a pretty cool team. You can just destroy guys with their size and try and bang in the goals. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like the wild card is Claude Lemieux because he's got the 3 stick handling, and I know that guys have lost important games as a result of that 3 stick handling on Claude Lemieux. So, but if he's on, then he is as good as anybody, just with that huge size and the skating. So I start him. But the second that he can't take a pass because of that stick handling, then in comes somebody else, probably C-Mac. As I go with Stastny, just cause, for me, I don't think I'll take anybody with size. So I'll have 3 guys with 9 or more weight. I'll sacrifice the shooting to get some more size. So I'll go with Stastny, and I know you get the left shot on the right wing. So I've been doing more of that lately as a reminder from Bob. As I've been playing, I was like, oh yeah, that does really feel good. To have that off wing shot. And like Bob said, that defense is it's almost second to none. I'm not sure what other pairing gives you that much comfort in knowing that you can take a chance with your forwards, and then know you've got 2 guys that can take down anybody with a hit. So yeah, it's a fun team. I don't know why, but I don't get a whole lot of success with them. I think because I'm not much of a banger in terms of hitting. So I don't think I respect the team. But for some reason, what I do doesn't super match up with what their strengths are. So I don't utilize the team to its advantages. But I know it is a good team. When people pick it, I'm oh, when they call a matchup with Jersey, I'm I should take it only because I just don't want you to have it. But I'm not that great at it, Yeah, but it's a good team for sure.
So
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, just a really funny story about Claude Lemieux. I think it was in a draft league. I had him because I drafted him a few times. Mm-hmm. And first shift of the game, first rush, probably 20, 30 seconds in, he bobbled the pass, but then he recovered the puck, missed the net on a good chance, and then took a penalty. So it was he hit the trifecta, the Claude Lemieux trifecta right off the bat. But I still like the player. High event hockey.
They're one of the bottom tier teams. It's tier 5 or 6 out of 7. So they're not top 1, 2, or 3 tier teams. But I want to know which team in their tier would give them fits.
In that tier, I'm scrolling down.
Yeah, that's good.
Are they the cream of the crop in this tier then?
Yeah, I don't think they belong down there. If we had to redo this tier thing, I really don't think, because I'll pick them over any of these other teams. Because I'm seeing here they're tiered with Dallas, which is awful, the Blues, which the Devils are superior to for sure, and Philly. I'd take Jersey over Philly. I'd pick them over the Leafs that are above them, right?
Yeah. So I mean, you got Washington, Quebec, and Toronto, who are kind of straddling 2 tiers, I guess. Washington is similar, maybe a bit better. Depends on preference. But yeah, I'd take New Jersey over pretty much all those teams. Although, Philly at home can be pretty great with Lindros and Recchi, but yeah, it'd be tough. New Jersey is strong in that lower tier where they are.
Very interesting. Okay, let's move on to the Islanders. And Professor, you could lead us off with this one.
Yeah, so they've got two intriguing forwards in Turgeon and Hogue. Not really, I'd say like superstars, but they're very solid. Like Turgeon with the 9 weight and the 4-4 skating, great shot, hits pretty well. Then you got Hogue, which has that again that 7 size, which again hits my bare minimum bar, and he's got the 4-5 skating. And the shot accuracy is really great too. So those two are actually kind of underrated in terms of what they what they bring. So that makes the team intriguing because of those two guys. But then it's the third forward that's a bit of a crapshoot. Like Steve Thomas with the 3 stick handling, very unreliable, but doesn't really bring a whole lot. I mean, the skating's pretty good, but I usually don't even bother. I go with Dave Volek, actually, who wasn't even on the spreadsheet. And so I had to add him in there just because he's the 4 stick handling that has some skating that I like. So I will probably just bring him out with the 4-4 and the stick. Yeah, the stick handling is super important to me. I need to know I can pass to somebody and not feel like I got to hide them. Yeah, but with Turgeon in the middle with the big size and the good skating, he's good two-way forward. Yeah, and then go with the default with the defense with Kasparaitis and Malikov. Malikov, huge guy. But again, their defense is suspect in terms of puck skills. So you don't really want them. Well, once they move the puck forward, you don't want to pass it back. There's no options. It's pretty hit or miss whether they're gonna participate in offense. But they'll do their job in terms of hitting somebody, because Kasparaitis, he's got a decent size, but he hits pretty well. So they'll do their bit on the back end, but if we just compare them to Jersey as an example, you've got those 2 D men with the 4 stick handling and some skill to be able to jump into the rush, and do something there. It'd be foolhardy for you to try to do something like that with this group. So yeah, I mean, it's an okay team. It's one of those middle of the pack groups that you'd want to call with I don't know, with a Dallas, let's say, because that's a comparable. So yeah, nothing to write home about. Big team like the rest of them, but the skills are just kind of meh.
Yeah, Turgeon's pretty great. He kind of saves this team. Outside of Turgeon, there's not too much. Even Hogue, I find I have trouble being effective with him. He doesn't really deliver for me for whatever reason. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the shot power or something. I just can't always bury it with him. And that third forward, I agree, it's tough. I always look at Derek King. He's got some really enticing skills with the shot. That's an elite shot. 4 power, 5 accuracy, and the stick handling to go with it, and the size to go with it. But the 2 speed just really, really hurts him. So there's not much you can do with him really, unless he gets some sort of magical boost, which sounds like might be a possibility sometimes. And then the D, it's bad. It's not Philly bad, but it's not good. But they're adequate, right? They're not really going to hurt you. You just can't do much with them offensively. So yeah, I like them. Agree. I like them over Dallas. I like them over Hartford as well. Kind of a similar team to Philly, I'd say, in the sense that like they've got two pretty great forwards and a bad D. Philly just maybe a little bit better in those areas.
UA Krupp, there's any possibility of playing? I'm looking at that 14
yeah.
size. Does that give him an edge at all? Like 2-2 skating, granted, but man, when he hits, it's kind of knock anybody down, right? So he's a force to be reckoned with as long as you could make him hit the guy, right?
Yeah, he can be used for sure. I never really think to put him in, but I know some guys have used him from time to time.
Yeah, if you've got I don't know, for whatever reason, like guys are bouncing off your guys, like in terms of hitting, for sure you can bring him. But again, he's not going to contribute at all with any kind of offensive game. So yeah, like I've drafted him in a draft league, and he's really saved my bacon a few times in terms of like clamping down on the defensive end. Yeah, especially when in draft league, guys, they draft big, right? So everybody is big. So you need someone bigger. Yeah.
Right. McSorty, Krupp, not
Yeah.
many options that fit.
Yeah,
that
and
mold.
he's at a bargain, right? Because like, now people know how big he is, but I think early before, like people weren't really thinking about him because he doesn't really give much of anything. So he's your third or fourth defenseman, right? Then you realize your strategy is not working, and you need to switch it up and just like barrel down on D. He's not a bad option. Yeah.
Bob, you were talking about Derek King and his 2-speed and potentially taking advantage of some sort of coding issues because it's the 39 speed or something like that. Is that what you're talking about in the SNES version? And does he fit that mold in terms of having maybe that right amount of speed to take advantage of it?
I think so. I think he's, with the 2 rating, I think if it says 39, according to the experts like McMarcus, I'm pretty sure he gets a boost there. So, maybe that's something to look for when you're the Islanders.
So Derek King may be a sleeper out there. Who knows?
I wonder if that changes the whole dynamic of this team. It would you know what I mean? Like if he's actually, if you think about it, a 9 weight with a great shot, and he's going to actually skate. Actually, that's not bad.
Be a great player. Yeah.
And you found your third forward. I know there's a struggle for you guys to figure. Yeah, there you go.
You just need to come up with excuses to restart the game if he's not 39, I
guess. Connection's bad. All right, let's go over to Manhattan. We'll look at the Rangers this time. And Bob, you are up.
All right. So, the 94 Cup champs. They're a pretty great team, tons of size and speed. So they're up there as one of the top teams. At forward, like you have so much size, speed, and skill, you can really set it up any way you want. Like Gardner has the best shot, but Messier and Tikkanen have the size, and Tikkanen has the skating as well to go with that size. He's a 5'5" skater with 5 hitting, which is kind of crazy. So I think it makes sense to put him at center, given his sort of physical attributes, and then he can just kind of fly all over both ends of the ice, hitting guys and creating plays. So the other thing is that gives you 2 passers on the wing with 5 passing, which is pretty great. I would like Gardner on the left side. You have that right shot on the inside of the ice. I find it a little odd that Gardner has a 5 passing. I don't think he was ever really known as a big playmaker passer. Like with the Rangers, I think he maxed at around 40 assists or so. But that's fine. The Rangers are a good team, so they're rated well here. They also have a bit of depth up front. We've got a whole bunch of forwards listed there as options. Nemchinov, Graves, Amante, etc. No one really jumps up and challenges for one of those top 3 starting spots, but like they're all adequate to come in. And then on D, James Patrick is one of the better right-hand shot Ds in the game, I would say. He's not elite, but he's very good. Leach is unfortunately pretty bad despite his agility. He doesn't really have the size or the speed necessary to fit. Kevin Lowe can come in, and he's just kind of adequate, although he does only have the 3-stick handling. Richter's the goalie. No comment there. So yeah, the Rangers, I'd say they're physically dominant just because they're big, they can skate, they can hit, and they also have those skills. I guess the only thing really missing that maybe teams like Boston, Pittsburgh, Detroit, and LA have is shot accuracy. For me, for whatever reason, shot accuracy is important. Like if I don't have a couple players with at least 4, but more like 5 shot accuracy, I have trouble scoring. So for me, they're kind of hit and miss, but definitely they have all the tools to be like one of the top teams and can win against anyone.
Yeah, this is one of the top teams for me. I don't know, for some reason, like maybe it's just how I usually score my goals, or like right up to the net. I'm usually deking something. So I've never had to be troubled too much with shot accuracy. So I think that's why I really like Tikkanen, because that's the only thing, that you can call that he's not great at, but like great size. That skating with that size is like unparalleled, and that hitting too. So I need my forward to be a really great, defender too, because like I usually call on that player to kind of really drop back and help out in D. So as like the first option. So I love Tikkanen. I think actually Tikkanen is probably my favorite player in the game, and like I pick them all the time first if I can, unless if for some reason God gives me the first overall pick, which never happens, and I'll go someone else probably. But usually, like after McGillney's gone, like I'd say I'd go with Tikkanen just because the skills are there and the shot's really good. Actually, I think Messier is a little bit overrated because I think that shot really hampers him, I'd say, like from being like super elite. Like he's a terrific player, but I think he goes a little bit earlier in the draft, and I don't know, that I would go for. But other than that, like built as a team here, like it's a great team. Like size all around, skating all around, hitting all around too. Like Gardner, for some, like he checks better than a 2 for me, and it might be just because of his speed. I don't know how momentum is calculated in the game, but he seems to dish it out pretty well. So that forward line, I don't know. I can't think of another line that can be beat really with that size and skill. And I'd actually say James Patrick, I'd say, is one of the best defenders. Like with the size and the 4-4, like the shooting is never like the accuracy is never great on any defender. Like I think in the game, minus like Bork. Yeah, but yeah, with like with the 4 stick handling, like 4 pass, 4 checking. Yeah, he'd be like one of the first off the block on a draft, but he's definitely for me the rock on the back end. And like you said, Kevin Lowe comes out instead of Leach. I think sometimes though, like if push comes to shove and Lowe's having an off day and you're behind in a game, like I might sub him out and go with Leach, just because you need to score, and Lowe may or may not be able to help you out with there. But he again, like he does the job with great hitting and size too. So I'd say like I don't know, top three team in the league, maybe top 5, depending on your taste. But it's it's the I don't know. I like sometimes I struggle between the Rangers and Pittsburgh, like where I would go with them. Like Pittsburgh has always been number 1, right? Now I feel like they're number 2, and I don't know, maybe it's just not trendy to pick Pittsburgh. But yeah, I really like the Rangers.
Yeah, I agree. I put them up there. Like I don't think Pittsburgh is necessarily that much better myself, but at the same time, I think teams like LA and Detroit might be just as good or better than the Rangers. So yeah, it all comes down to preference, but I think we can agree like they're a top 5 team.
Yeah.
Who's the first guy that comes off the bench in defense? I know it may be situational. If you're down, you'll probably bring in Leach, but Bookabum, does he have a shot in anybody's depth charts?
Oh, I don't think so. I think you'd go with Leach and just trip guys, because he can't really hit anyone.
Yeah.
I stuck with
Yeah, even for me, I'd probably put Leach in there as much as I really don't love the player.
Like personally, or
No, just the player in the
Just the
game. I don't
game,
know.
yeah.
I don't know what he's like as a person.
No, I don't know.
All right, Professor, we'll go over to Philadelphia. And this team, it sounds like both of you guys really like this team. You talked fondly of them a few times. So, yeah, take it away.
I don't know. I mean, it's a really frustrating team because if they're like, if it all comes down to Eric Lindros, if he's on, he's and skates okay, like from because he just has that boost, then he is unstoppable with the 12 weight and the 5 checking. Like the 4-3, like the speed really hampers him on paper, but like I said, like if he's on for some reason, then like he's a wrecking ball on that for that team. But if he's not great, like the other two forwards are just kind of so. Recchi has the skating, but he's a little on the small end, and Brindamore has the size, but he doesn't but then he's slower with the 3, and you can kind of feel it with him. I don't know, like I'm not in love with the forwards minus Lindros, but if he's rough, then the whole game is rough. So it's high risk, high reward if you're picking Philly. And we go with Hoggood. Like Hoggood's not like half bad, but yeah, the defense is quite bad just because of the stick handling again. Like they're pretty rough. They're not going to do much for you offense wise, and they're not great skaters, and they're not that big either. So it's pretty sketch on the back end. And the goalies are, they're whatever. So, I mean, the only thing is Lindros. You ride or die with him if you pick this team.
Yeah, a couple of things with this team is I find their forward group is actually pretty great. Like Lindros and Recchi are very good. Like Lindros is elite, and I think Recchi, like with that shot, with that skating, he can be really, really solid top forward. That third forward is a bit of a struggle. I always go Brindamore, and he can be a bit of a wrecking ball sometimes, like nice complimentary winger, similar to like a Shane Corson hype, but he's not going to score too much. And so the problem comes down to the D, which I've called expansion level D. They really are. It's really bad. And I think, Gary Galley, his ratings could have been a bit better based on, I think, the season he had prior to this. But he is what he is. It's just not a good defense. So it's kind of a shame, because if they had a good defenseman, this would be an upper level team, I would say. The other thing about this team is I find there's a huge difference from home and away. Like at home, they can be dominant with Lindros there, and on the road, they can be really awful. Like he's slow, and you're going to have several players bobbling the puck. So it's kind of something that you have to be aware of in tournament play, I guess, is if you pick the matchup, you might have them on the road, which can be rough.
Maybe that's why I don't like him as much as you do.
Is Soderstrom a sleeper? Because I look at his attributes, the 3 weight and everything else that goes along with it, seems to be decent, right? Or am I just overthinking this too much?
I think you're overthinking it, because again, like the goalies don't matter too much in Super Nintendo. Like he's got decent ratings, but I don't know. I'm looking at Prof, and he's like, I don't know, man. It's a SNES goalie. They're all pretty similar, like we've talked about, unless you're maybe Patty Waugh or Ed Belfour. These guys are all pretty similar, but yeah, I do see Soderstrom has like above average ratings there. So yeah,
something to pay attention to. I guess, like when we think about it, but yeah, nothing doesn't doesn't come across like when you're playing with Philly that you're like, oh yeah, like Soderstrom standing on his head, like no, that's
He's
not
a meat shield.
like them all. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's go over to a team that has maybe the best player in the game. And maybe it's debatable. We can talk about that another time. But yeah, Philadelphia. Sorry, Pittsburgh, not Philadelphia. Pittsburgh. We talked about Philly last one. So, Bob, you can lead off with how you'd build a line with how you build a team with Pittsburgh.
Sure. So Pittsburgh is an elite team, but I don't think they're the best. I think Boston's the best, and I think you could argue a couple other teams are just as good, actually. But Lemieux is pretty great, arguably the top rated player. I wouldn't say he is the best player, though. I think we've talked about, guys like McGillney being better. I feel Lemieux is maybe missing an edge, and I think it's maybe mental, but I think he's missing a bit of an edge compared to like a Neely or a Lindros in terms of like big guys with skill. Jaeger is so good other than that shot. Like the 3-3 shot is really unfortunate. I have trouble burying my chances with Jaeger, but he does get a lot of chances, and he can also skate and hit, so he's a valuable player. And Kevin Stevens is a nice complementary power forward as well. And they have a really deep bench up forward as well. And the D is also an upper echelon D, I would say. I don't think they're in like maybe the top 3 with like Boston, New Jersey, Washington, but they're pretty good. Murphy can feel a bit slow at times, but he's got the skills. And then, Samuelson's got the skating and the 5 checking, so he can injure Neely and whoever else he wants to, right? So, Pittsburgh is skilled and they're big, but a couple issues that I struggle with is they can feel slow, and outside of Lemieux, like who's scoring the goals? Jaeger's shot is below average, and Stevens is hit or miss. So I think I don't know. I don't know if they're better than teams like Detroit, New York, and LA for me personally, but a pretty great team nonetheless.
Yeah. They can feel slow, which is really weird because they like skate pretty well otherwise, right? Like Lemieux and Yager with the agility, and you can actually feel the agility. Like so I like them in turn, like even if they are kind of slow, like you can still do what you need to do like generally, like with the maneuvering, so because that's so important for me. But yeah, like it's sometimes like really disappointing when Lemieux is slow, like with all the hype and everything. Like you pick the team or you're excited, and he has an off day. You're like, come on, like a 100 rated player should not have an off day like that. So and like with how people play, like speed is so important. That's why, like, yeah, I think a lot of people would pick McGillney over Lemieux just because McGillney with that 6 speed, even if he has an off day and he's like a 5 speed, he's still doing circles around people. So it's more safe, and all the skills that go with McGillney, right? So I'd say Lemieux is sort of that guy that you just don't want to be burned, like that you passed them, in a draft, or like Pittsburgh as a team, you just sort of like when you don't pick them, then you just sort of like have this weight on you that you're like, oh, did I just pass up on like the quote unquote best team? When you're playing against them. But yeah, I mean, like it's funny how like I didn't even realize like Stevens has a better shot accuracy than Jaromir Jagr. Like I find that I don't know, I can't recall like what the numbers were that year, but yeah, like. So Stevens, he can feel kind of sluggish too, but the size matters in NHL 94. So that forward, like even when things aren't going well, like they can absorb a hit, and will get you that second chance that you need to make your move. Larry, not bad at the back end, and you got the other Samuelson, you got Kel Samuelson, right? That 14 can I don't think I've ever needed to bring that out, just because you've got like Lemieux and Yager who can kind of help out, but that's just a funny end note that you've got somebody on the bench that's pretty much bigger than everybody else. And yeah, again, do goalies matter? Not really, I don't think. But Barrasso is one of the better goalies in the game for what it's worth.
So this is a team that's the lower end of tier 1. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I don't know. Well, again, like, do you really want to say that when and then someone else
Bob?
picks them and then destroys you?
Bob, do you agree with that sentiment, or you want to argue against it, saying that I'm wrong?
No, I mean, I think I'll say they're a top 3 team. Like they're up there. So I don't know. It depends on preference. Personally, I like Boston like much better, and then I struggle with whether Pittsburgh is even better than a couple of the other teams. But
Detroit, LA.
Yeah, Detroit, LA, maybe even the Rangers. I don't know, but in general, people seem to love Pittsburgh as like the best team, or at least one of the top 2 teams, and I understand why. I just, from my own experience, like I said, I need better shooters. Like outside of Lemieux, I struggle to do much with this team at times, just because of the lack of shot accuracy, and they can feel slow. Like they are just so big, and I like big players, but they can feel slow compared to some of those other like really elite teams.
So Joey Mullen as an option, just to give you a tiny guy out there, is not really much of a consideration.
Well, again, like he's got the 3 speed, right? So he's got a great shot and everything, but he's not overly fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say like Ron Francis is first guy off the bench, right?
And he's got the skills.
Yeah.
And his size is, yeah. All right, go over to Washington, and big defense. They just a couple of big dudes back there. Professor, go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts on this.
I know. I feel like this is like a sleeper team. I don't know what, like, they're in the tier 4, tier 5, which I don't get, because I really like this team. Ridley, big guy, with the 9 and the 4-4, skating. Like the shot power, I guess, is the one thing that might hamper this group. But again, like, to me, since I do a lot, as the damage I do is usually pretty point blank, so I'm not super dependent on that. But I don't know. Like they feel big, and they are big. Like at least with Ridley, and I usually take Kelly Miller, and take him off the bench and start him, just again with that size. Like, it's not bad, pretty good, I'd say, with the 8 and the 4-4. That to me, like the size with like half decent skating is makes it a pretty good makes it a good combo. And then you got Peter Bondra, who's the fastest guy in the game. I mean, well, you can't get much faster than that. The agility is a little bit weird. Yeah, so you sort of like, you're kind of like a runaway freight train with him sometimes, like, because he's not as nimble of a fast guy as some of the other.
Is he hard to deke with?
Well, you can just, like, I don't know. For me, I can feel that like you can't zigzag like with McGillney. Like, if you make that comparison, like, you can feel it in the controller that McGillney, you can just be more fine, like with the things that you're doing. But still, I mean, like, he'll move the puck up to the zone. Like, he'll do the things that you need the winger to do, right? So it's that cool mix of having like a Ridley who's pretty strong in the middle, with a really fast guy. So there's some neat diversity in the team. And again, like, I feel like, let's go to the defense, right? Like with Iafrate and Hatcher, like Iafrate is elite, like one of the, I don't know, definitely top 5 defenders in the game, with the skills and the shot. That shot power is ridiculous, and the hitting. And then Hatcher on the back end too with the 12. That you're going to be fine on D with this group, so that's helpful. So, like, yeah, I feel like with the team, like, they're not. I don't think they're a tier 4 or 5. Like, I think, like, if I have to go look at the tiers, but I definitely have them over. I don't know. Maybe it's just a feeling I've got with the team. But I don't know. I feel like they're undervalued.
Bob.
Yeah, so yeah, so I was just looking at the tiers. So yeah, I mean, I tend to agree they could probably be up in like tier three, because right off the bat, you look at their D and it's elite. It's up there
Mm-hmm.
with, I'd say, Boston and probably New Jersey as the top three D pairs that have both size and skill. And probably the hardest shooting D pair with I think it's a shot power and a 5 shot power, so they can shoot it. Um, and they have depth too, because Calle Johansson is really quite a good third option there.
Mm-hmm.
But I consider this team kind of like an expert level team because they're a bit tricky to use. They have a few players with unique skills, which is great, but it can be kind of hard to find that chemistry and figure out how to use them. Like, how do you use Bondra's speed? He does, he's fast, but he dekes weird. It's just different, right? Like, he's got a different feel to him. So you have to get
Mm-hmm.
used to that. And then it's like, how do you use Kristich's shot, which is also elite? It's like a Lindros shot, 4-6. Despite his his skating, which isn't great, given that he's not like an overly large guy. And then how do you take advantage of like Iafredi's huge shot as well? So like they have some really interesting, unique skill sets, but it's like how do you put it all together, and how do you like keep that in mind as you go about your game? So yeah, it's kind of like one of those teams in a video game where it's got this like huge sort of potential to be great, but it also has a bit of a learning curve, right? It's kind of tricky to get the controls down. The controls are a little bit more complicated or advanced. So yeah, I like them in a lot of matchups against some of those other mid-tier teams. I think again, like on the road, you can get into some trouble, but I could say that for any team really. So interesting team for sure.
I remember there was a game I was playing against Stantonator, and I was doing pretty good, and then he started just feeding it to Iafredi and like just rushing with him, and I can tell like this is what he's doing, like he's rushing and then he's scoring, and then he's like okay, and then he just kept doing it, and I just couldn't stop that day. I don't know, I can't remember who I was with playing with, but yeah, like that D-man, that 11 with the decent skating and the shot, like oof, when he's on, it's like you gotta watch out. So yeah, it's an interesting thing you said, like expert level team, because like like each of these guys like does bring like something, like there are some guys that have some really elite abilities, and it is just a matter of like, yeah, how do you tap into it? And so yeah, I think that's a good observation, but it's a good team. It's a good one. Like I'm looking at the list above it, like maybe it's just the Leafs are overrated, right? Like I wouldn't pick the Leafs over like even Winnipeg, Montreal. Like now I think that's about as high as it gets. Like, but yeah, I think that they're a top, like, what is that? That's a top 8, top 10. Yeah.
There you have it. The Leafs are overrated.
Oh shoot! I said that on the record. Shoot.
But yeah, like it's kind of interesting. Like we both suggested Ridley at center, which just sort of goes to show like this team doesn't have a real elite forward, right? Like we put a guy with what is it, 3 shot power as our center, but he's decent. He's kind of like a Muller. He's like Kirk Muller, just a bit less shot power, right? Jack of all trades, master of none, sort of thing. Like he can play two-way and make hits in the defensive zone. So yeah, tricky team, but I'd say tons of potential, and the D is just unreal.
How do you take advantage of that 6 shot power from Iafredi? Because from what I understand, it's scoring goals with slap shots on SNES is really not much of a thing compared to Genesis. So how do you take advantage of this?
Well, ask whoever Prof was playing, Stanton or whoever.
Yeah.
Like some guys are getting really good at coming up with, you know, Iafrate or Hull or whoever, and just overpowering the goalie with the big slapper. Like as soon as they cross the blue line, you start the wind up and pick a corner. But it's really tricky to get that down.
I think like with a good shot, you're I don't know. I feel like your deeks you have a little bit more margin for error. I don't know, like that shot coming off quicker. I think it adds a little bit more like probability that your move is going to make it through. So I don't know. I think like yeah, with a good shot, like your finishing is just, you know, probably more likely to go like into the net. But like, yeah, I was just trying to think like with a one timer from the point, like that's not really a high probability thing. But yeah, like just with the like again, like it was just a flashback. I was like, what is going on like in this game with Stantinator? He was just past the just, you know, dropping it back to the blue line, and then he was just meandering his way through and picking corners with the shot. So yeah, I think it is getting closer, and then kind of making one of those moves that you just kind of get the goalie out of position, and that shot's gonna find the gap.
Well, that's the last team for the last division.
Wow.
Bob, did you have anything else you want to say about Washington? Sounds like you had a comment you want to make.
No, I really don't. I'm just surprised that we got through it. We did all the teams, so that's great.
Yeah. Guys, I hope like the people listening and watching learned it, but you too as well. You've learned something, because from what I gather, putting the offhanded shots on a wing seems to be a thing nowadays. So like you guys learned something from this whole series as well, right?
Well, I learned it from Prof years ago, and then he forgot it, and now he's re-remembered it. So like we've been playing this game so long, we're just learning, then forgetting, and then learning it again, and it's just kind of cyclical. And we'll just do this till we're all dead. So,
but now we have this documented.
That's right. So yeah, I'll listen to every single one of these, just on the road to the tourney, and we'll both be unbeatable, Bob.
Hey, we're 2 months away. So, guys, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and the effort for doing this, because without your help, there's no way I could have done it. And I hope that there are people out there that took something away from this, or a lot away from this. So it's all up to you guys that did it. So I just want to thank you again for all your help for this wonderful stuff.
Well, thanks for letting us do this. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks. And you know, if people are looking at those sheets and find any errors or issues or suggestions, I'm pretty sure we're willing and able to update them at any time. So we can keep that in mind. But yeah, thank you guys both. This has been a lot of fun.
Has been, and you're right. Good comment there. If there's any suggestions or edits that should be made, just let us know. We'll be able to do it. So absolutely. And with that, we're signing off. Keep your stick on the ice, controller plugged in. Take care.